We're about five after, so we'll go ahead and get started then. Welcome, everyone. This is the Skills Kickstart session on bin lots. Our presenter today is Mariah and myself. We're going to go ahead and get started in just another minute or so. We're going to give everyone time to get logged in. Don't hesitate to throw questions in the QA function or the chat function. We'll be monitoring that as we go ahead and start our presentation. And you don't have to wait for any given time. Just go ahead and throw those in there. And with that, I think I'll let you go ahead and start it there, Mariah.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. And thank you everybody for joining us today for the Bin Lots Skills Kickstart. I'm Mariah Holcomb, a product manager here at Encompass. A lot of my time in the last 10 years at Encompass has been spent on the operations side, a lot of that in WMS and on the floor of warehouses, which is exactly where Bin Lots focuses for today. Lots of inventory management benefits to this, date tracking, all of that kind of good stuff. So I'm happy to talk to you about it today and get everyone a little bit more in the know about bin lots.
Yeah, and my name is Nick Darnell. I'm an implementation consultant here with Encompass. I've been doing this now for going on close to 4 years. So that means spending a lot of time getting us initially started there in the warehouse with WMS. So, really excited to talk about bin lots and how to better optimize and utilize this functionality.
Great. So for today, what we're looking at for this bin lots skills kickstart is just starting with the foundations here. So first, we want to understand just the general inventory structure within Encompass. That way we can understand a little bit better how bin lots plug into that. From there, once we know what that structure is like and how all the data connects, we'll go into some considerations for why you would want to use bin lots and how to configure those bin lots in your system. We will wrap up the presentation today with demos from dock to delivery. So from the moment inventory enters your warehouse, how do we get bin lots started from there? How do we follow that all the way through until that inventory is out in the market? So we can actually follow bin lots all the way to delivery. So we'll get to see that full life cycle today through our demos, which will be the larger portion of the presentation today. So just to give us a little bit more context around bin lots before we dive into the structure and how all that data works together. Bin lots are a record of inventory keeping for a particular date layer in a specific bin. So one way that you could think about that is as inventory enters your warehouse through a purchase or a shipment, you're going to have a particular expiration date or batch that's associated with that inventory. The next time you receive that inventory into your warehouse, you're going to have probably a different date or a different batch. In which point you would have two dates or two batches in your system at the same time. So bin lots help us keep track of all of those different layers of date information, even if that inventory happens to be residing in the same bin. So a greater benefit around inventory date rotation. So bin lots allow you to keep a close eye on that accurate inventory rotation. And when I say rotation, really we're talking about FIFO or FIFO, first in, first out, first expire, first out. Uh, and then all of the ways that you might accidentally or intentionally not do FIFO in your system. So a lot of the times when you're not using bin lots, we're assuming FIFO for you and always working in that forward motion of date rotation. If for some reason, like for a far distance transfer or something like that, you go out of rotation, bin lots helps you keep track of all of those dates a lot more accurately, much more easily. So how do we do that? For a long time in the Encompass system, this all really hinged on scanning pallet tags within all of your inventory actions out on the floor. And scanning is definitely still a major part of bin lots. We'll see that a lot today in our demonstrations. But we've actually more recently introduced some sort of automatic rotating, even when we don't have the ability to scan as well, or offering the choice to tell us what date you're working with. If you might not have a pallet tag, you can scan at that time. So really it's about communicating with the system, telling us what date you're working with as inventory moves around or as you pick it to get ready for delivery, all about communication. So at a glance, the top half of this slide is speaking to the foundation of inventory tracking within Encompass. So we're talking about bin inventories here. Now, a bin inventory just refers to a particular product linked up to a particular bin in your system. So you could think of that as a pick bin, maybe something like A1 in your warehouse. A product is going to be residing physically in that bin, and that will be represented by a bin inventory record in the Encompass system. With a bin inventory, with a bin inventory, we are really rolling up the total inventory within that bin and then just stamping that inventory with whatever date is supposed to rotate out next. So typically, that's always just going to be the next to expire. That might not necessarily actually represent all of the inventory in that bin, but that's the date we need to look out for so that we don't miss it and let some of that inventory expire. So that's what we're going to stamp on that bin inventory for best visibility. We can see this demonstrated on the slide as well if we look over to that upper right corner of the screen where we can see, yeah, layer one, that's the next date that's going to expire in that bin, but we might have two other dates, three, four, five, however many dates you might be rotating through in your system at a time. Those could all be living together. We're only going to see that first layer represented though. Now, when we turn on bin lots, like I was noting in the prior slide, we have much greater access to visibility on all of those different layers. So physically, nothing has changed. All of that inventory is still in the same place, and whether it has a pallet tag or not, it still has the same date that it had before. But with bin lots turned on, now we can actually see that in the system. So we get that separation of inventory by its different date layers. You can tell the system that you're working with those, and it'll continue to move through the system that way, the more you communicate. So why bin lots? I've talked a lot already about that first column of being able to just track multiple code dates in the same place. So this really does take your inventory management to the next level by being able to track those multiple expiration dates across the warehouse instead of just having that assumption of, working with the next one to expire. That's particularly important when it comes to more complex inventory management systems where, maybe you have multiple warehouses out there and you do transfers in between them, or you sell to other distributors that might be further away. In those kinds of instances, it's a lot more likely that you don't necessarily want to give them FIFO inventory next to expire if it's a transfer and there's more selling to do after that. We want to give a fresher date so that there's more time for that inventory to be okay on the floor. So for instances like that, uh, using bin lots unlocks visibility to those dates, but then also gives you access to controlling what dates you're using as that inventory moves through your warehouse and out of your warehouse as well. So we'll see this a little bit later, but we have some ways that you can actually tell the system specifically what date you want to use instead of that assumption of FIFO. And of course, from dock to delivery, we have that ability to track all the way through. And that does actually mean all the way out into the market as well. So another one of our demos that we'll see today is actually using bin lots during palletization and picking, in which case that bin lot or that date or that batch that you picked, you're going to actually see on the customer's invoice too. So when it comes to things like recalls, or any kind of, tracking dates out in the market, bin lots will represent that much more accurately as well and give you peace of mind if you do happen to recall inventory back into the warehouse, that that is the exact customers and invoices that you need to be working with. So, a couple of things to consider here. Like I mentioned before when we were talking about how bin lots works, scan, scan, scan. This is the best action you can take to get accurate bin lot representation, date representation, batch representation every single time. Now, we have offered some ways where you don't have to scan, but when you can scan, you should. So be prepared to be printing labels during receiving or using supplier pallet tags to scan every time until that inventory makes it into a pick bin where, maybe we lose the label at that point. For all other actions in the warehouse, though, scan every single time. Bin lots is also what allows us to support integrations with ASRS, and that is an automated storage and retrieval system. So you can think of it like a big robot vending machine for all of your different pallets in the warehouse. This is typically a hardware integration that we are plugging into, not something that Encompass provides on its own. But for those of you that may have like a Cirrus ASRS, using bin lots is exactly what's needed to be able to communicate properly with those ASRS systems, how your pallets are moving around within that, as well as into that system and out of that system. So gives us that perfect level of granularity that we can actually break down a little bit further to be pallet by pallet as well, which is actually what the ASRS needs. So with that and saying pallet by pallet, you might be wondering, where does license plates plug into this? I've heard that license plates phrase before when it comes to setups in Encompass. And what I'll note there is that license plates are really that next step up in complexity when it comes to inventory tracking. License plates are pallet by pallet, but they're really specific to instances where you might be managing pallet inventory that actually separates it from the purchase transaction that it entered your warehouse on. So you could think of that primarily as like maybe restacking a pallet so that it actually has different inventory on it than how it was received initially. So that's really the main thing that causes the need for something like license plates, and there's a lot higher complexity with tracking those. For most people, tracking bin lots is that right level because you're getting that separation of date management, and in some cases pallet management, but there's not differences in inventory across those pallets. So now that we know a little bit more about the background of bin lots, how those bin lot inventory structures can differ slightly from overall bin inventory, now we can take a look at how to actually configure that in your system.
Yeah. And then speaking about configuration, you're going to notice that we have two sort of columns here. We have what is required in order to utilize bin lots, and then we also have the optional ones for things like ASRS, pallet controls, and as well as like license plates and such. So, to dive into what's required here, we have tracking controls for products and bin zones, and printing controls for product types and vendors. Optional, of course, is going to be based off of location and system settings for ASRS. If we move on, we can get a kind of better visual representation of what this looks like. So you'll see two kind of screenshots of both the product setup here. So that being when we take a look here, we have track code dates set to true and track batch codes and track vintages there as well on the product setup there. But the big one there is going to be tracking our code dates so that way we can bring those bin lots in. When taking a look at bin zones, that's where we turn around and we look at all the settings that we have there. But the biggest one there is going to be if we are tracking bin lots. You're going to see that we have yes selected and scanning is required or optional on every single one of these. Now, a big question that we get is can we use uh, the barcodes that are provided by suppliers and vendors on those pallet tags that they provide? And the answer is going to be yes. We can use those as long as those are recorded and brought into the Encompass system for us to scan and then track those. We can utilize those as well. Turning around and moving on to our product type controls, we need to have tracking inventory set to true. Uh, we need to be able to have those in there. And then we also need to be able to be printing those received pallet tags on there. So that way we have something to scan when we receive those. So that way, from the moment that they are brought in, we have something to track and scan. As Mariah said, we need to be scanning as often as possible. And so those pallet tags are what allows us to utilize that, especially in a WMS environment. And then from vendors there, we have that print receiving pallet tag set to true as well.
Yeah, and as Nick noted before, we can see that very bottom row vendor record. It says do not print use vendors. That's the setting you would use if you were going to use the supplier provided pallet tag instead of the Encompass printed one.
Exactly. And then bringing that over, we have those optional configurations when it comes to using license plates by pallet or bringing in supplier EDI import purchase transactions by pallet. What these do is they help split those purchase trans by pallet for things like ASRS and for license plates as well. And then moving on, we turn around and we can see what those pallet tags look like and then what we need to be able to be scanning in order to track those bin lots. We can see here it brings in that expiration date, tells us what the product is, and then from there we have a unique barcode we can use to track this wherever we move this into our warehouse. And Mariah is going to turn around and pull up a simulator for us to simulate while I walk us through what it would be like if I was sitting on the warehouse floor to receive a new shipment here. Wonderful. So, bringing that in, we're going to turn around and this would be a handheld as if I had a mobile phone or mobile device with me that I was using to operate inside the warehouse. From here, I would log into the warehouse and I'll be greeted with something that we're pretty familiar with at this point. This is all of our options for WMS. So if I'm going to be receiving, I will turn around and go to that receiving portion of the warehouse. And when I tap on that, I'm going to be presented with all the dates for receiving. I'm going to go to the most recent date for what we'll be receiving. And from here, we can see a shipment that we are expecting to come in. So once I go ahead and tap on that, this is where I'm presented with what we are expecting to receive. But if I need to split this out as well with different expiration dates, I can do so from here. So we're going to go ahead and click on that product to receive. We're going to want to make sure that we're not putting this away right away. I have to unload that truck. We got to get everything off that truck so they can get out of here. And then I'll go ahead and I'll move this to wherever I need to. So we're going to tap on no right there. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and throw in my expiration date for this particular product. So we'll say that we're just receiving one pallet of product here, and we'll go ahead and we'll save that there. So I've received that in, but maybe we have two pallets with two different expiration dates there. So we can go ahead, we can go to that add products tab button right there. And we're going to go ahead and pull that product back up. And from here, we're going to go ahead and tap on that create new line. This is not the same expiration date. We need to separate that out. So we're creating a new line for that product. So in this case, the expiration date is going to be different. So we'll go ahead and put in that different expiration date. And how much of that different expiration date we have, in which case, another one pallet there. Once we're done and we've created that separate line, we'll save that out. And then we're good to go and receive this particular product.
And since we've got another line on this purchase, I'm going to go ahead and we'll just add another date layer here. So we've got plenty to work with. So
Awesome. Wonderful. So now that we've turned around and we've received that, our pallet tags have been printed, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put away this product. So we're going to go up to that put away option there. And this is what's telling us where we can go ahead and grab that and move our products in receiving to wherever they need to be. We're also going to need to make sure that this part of it uh, this is where a lot of that big scanning kind of comes into play here. We're going to need to be scanning from our receiving area and then make sure that we're scanning when we're putting things away so that way we can kind of track that. You're going to see that Mariah is going to be typing a lot in here. That's just because we're on a simulator and we don't have physical scanners or a physical warehouse that we're working in.
Yeah, so with that, what I'll call out here is that the palette tag that we looked at just before hopping into the demo, we have that barcode down at the bottom of that tag. That barcode represents that unique identifier for the palette. In the case of that barcode, it is formatted as an SSCC18 code, which is really just a universal identifier. That same barcode could actually be used over on your supplier's side. Similarly, when we print pick pallet tags, it's also that same code, and retailers can recognize that barcode as well. So you can always type in that string of digits, and it actually acts the same as though you had scanned the barcode, which is really just transmitting that string of numbers to the handheld. So we can do it that way. For my own typing today, I'm going to use our purchase trans ID directly, but that is just another thing that can be scanned in order to search that particular purchase transaction, which is that connection to the bin lot. So I've got one of those here. And now I'm going to actually search for that by adding that product from our receiving bin. So in typing this, that is the moment where you are scanning that pallet tag.
That's all good. And then
So with that, we can see that upon scanning, it's not just the recognition of that product, it's the recognition of that product we see received at that actual quantity that was received as well. And the reason the system knows that is because I scanned the pallet tag that is specific to that pallet.
oh,
And now, once we've confirmed that quantity, so you scan and the quantity is automatically populated. From there, after tapping next, it's just a matter of selecting that to bin. So at this point, as a forklift driver, you've gone over to the receiving bin, you scanned the pallet tag to pick up that pallet and actually put it on your forks. And now we're going to drive to that area of the warehouse where this product lives permanently. In this case, we'll say it's its backstock bin. And I can either scan that backstock bin or select it from this page to complete that move.
and then yeah, create
And now we can continue to do that. We can repeat that same process, scan the pallet tag, confirm the inventory, complete the move until all of those different pallets of this same product are put away. Um, as we scan those pallet tags, we're tracking each of those individual dates, and those will move into the backstock bin that we choose to put this inventory to. So Nick, I'll do this one more time and then we can see that next step in the inventory cycle.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah,
So we do our scan.
So the big call out here, as Mariah is typing that in, is scanning, of course, is a lot easier and a lot quicker than having to find these numbers and go and put those in. And so uh, that's what allows for such quick and ease of use as far as turning around and being able to track these different expiration dates wherever you're moving them. So now that we've put away all of our product on the receiving side and we've moved those different expiration dates to where we need to, we can turn around and now when it comes to palletization and picking, we can direct specific bin lots to be picked there. So one call out there is if we want to just get a nice ease of use before going and doing that, we want to check on that. We can go up to that warehouse search and we can search for any bins that we've put things away in, or we can even search for particular bin lots themselves and see where they are residing in our warehouse.
Yeah, so we can do that. I'll do that same scan that we did before, where we'll scan that pallet tag. So we can see that same inventory as that same product, 3236, that we've been working with. Because I scanned that pallet tag, it knows what purchase trans ID or bin lot that we're working with here. So it can show me that expiration date that I typed in during receiving. With that, you can also expand each of these inventory sections. So when we look at a row of data in this way, what we're actually looking at here is the bin inventory. So the connection of this product 3236 to bin A16E, we can see that total roll up of inventory, 128 cases here, and then that expiration date that is stamped on that particular bin. And this plus button then allows us to actually fill in that bin lot level of data. So we can expand that. And for this particular pick bin, we do only see that one date, but each of your bin lots will be listed here for all of those different dates that you might be tracking. So we have that understanding in the system that we have this purchase transaction with the date of 210 on it. Um, and then we have our different bin inventories. So now from the role of a forklift driver, I can actually move over into, I'll put on my supervisor hat here, and we can get some palletization ready for the evening shift or those picking and deliveries that may go out the next day. So I'm going to stop sharing the simulator here and we'll switch over to the desktop for a moment. All right, so now I am on Delivery Optimizer. If you're familiar with palletization processes, then you'll know that this is the screen that we do all of that pre-delivery work from alternate locations and oversold products, managing that inventory before palletization, doing your daily routing. All of those kinds of activities are done from Delivery Optimizer as well as actual palletization. And that's where we'll plug in for our bin loss demonstration here, which is I have a transfer route that's going to go out tomorrow. For a lot of normal deliveries that are going to be in town to retailers of some kind, or it's whether it's on premise or off premise, likely you're going to go more for typical inventory rotation in those. So it's going to be a lot closer to FIFO and FIFO in those instances. But for a transfer, maybe that warehouse I'm sending inventory to is much further away, and then that inventory is going to sit in their warehouse and wait to be ordered from their inventory as well. So we want to make sure that it's not going to expire as soon as it gets there, that they actually have some time to sell that inventory. For those kinds of instances, we can use bin lots to help us. So from Delivery Optimizer, that's where a lot of this work is done. I'm going to select my transfer route here and then just click palletize. Up until this point, this is business as usual when it comes to making pallets for any kind of route that you might be picking for. But we'll notice on this page that I have a new button. This is the Assign Batch tool. Now, some of you may already be aware of the Assign Batch tool or maybe using it even, if you are just checking in on some binlot knowledge here. But for those of you that aren't aware of this button, this is accessed via a system setting. So this is one last configuration in the system that just helps you make that final connection to binlots when it comes to the to delivery side of dock to delivery. So I'm going to go over to system settings here.
So we've received this one, so you
And
can
then we're going to pull up that assign batch setting. So this is system setting 3152. You don't have to remember that. If you just type in assign or assign batch, you're going to be able to find that setting in your system. And we just want to make sure that that toggle is turned on. This is the switch that allows you to see that assign batch button within palletization. So with that in mind, I'm going to hop back over to Delivery Optimizer and we'll actually continue with this palletization process now. I'm going to select my transfer route, click palletize, and then we can hop into that assign batch button. Now, at this point, what we're working with is all of the products that might be on this transfer. And then as I select each of those products that I want to assign a batch for or assign a date, we're going to see more information about those different dates that we have in the system. So in this case, we're working with that same product, and we can see on this invoice that there are two different pallets that are going to be transferred. So this product is 64 cases per pallet. We're going to break each of those out into the different pallets because that's how they'll be picked. So in this case, that's how we can kind of understand how we need to divvy out this inventory. Let's say that for this transfer, I know that one of those pallets is pretty immediately going to be sold to, a big box store. But I know that the rest of that inventory, that other 64 cases we're sending them, will be for normal sales. And in that case, I want to give them something a little bit fresher because I know it's not going to turn through inventory as quickly. So for something like that, what I can do is actually say, okay, for this pallet, we'll do those 64 cases. They can come out of our next date to rotate. But then I want to give them some fresher inventory as well. So we can let that, we can either go ahead and directly assign that, or for anything that is FIFO, you don't have to assign those dates specifically. The system will just assume that you want to go by FIFO. So really you only need to assign those older or fresher dates within the assign batch tool. So in that case, I can divvy these dates up how I want them to be picked, then go ahead and save that assign batch. And then not only does that help me get better visibility on the dates that I'm working with and may want to send out to deliveries, but then those actually set the picking instructions for your picking team members. So when I do this assign batch action prior to actually creating those pallets in the system is then going to palletize with those batch assignments instructions in mind, and then those will be the bins that your picking team members are directed to on the ePick side of things. And here we can just see that that batch assignment has been saved. So once I've gone through all of the different products within my order that I want to do those batch assignments for and gather fresher inventory, I can then go ahead, save all those assignments, and then go back to palletize. Now, at this point, we still don't have pallets created. This is all pre-palletization work to make sure the system knows what to do when we actually make those pallets. So as soon as you do feel comfortable with all of those assignments, then we can click that palletize button one last time, and that's going to actually make those pallets for us. So now at this point, we have those two different pallets, same assignments that we were working with in the assign batch tool. So we're going to have one of these that will pull from our pick bin and one that will pull from our backstock bin. So I'll go ahead and process those pallets. And then we can hop back over to the handheld. I'm going to take off my supervisor hat. I'm going to put on my picking team member hat. And we'll do that last piece of the process here, which is ePick Plus. All right, so we're back on our warehouse handheld here. I now am a picker, and I'm going to go to the picking section and select ePick Plus here. Now we can see
begin to continue.
We can see in ePick Plus here that I am automatically selected on that next date. So that's when we know pallets have been processed for. ePick Plus is going to automatically set me to that date for this transfer route because those are the pallets that are available to me. So in this case, now I can go ahead and hit start picking. And she's going to give me some instructions to start.
Next location, A12F, pick 1, pallet.
So we can see in this instance that we have been directed to that bin for our particular code date that we set for this 64 cases. In this instance, I can also scan that pallet tag that would still be on the shrink wrapped pallet to confirm that that is the date that I'm working with. When it comes to final say on what dates are actually going to be stamped on invoices for delivery, whether that's a transfer or out to the market to retailers, that scanning of the pallet tag is also very important. So anytime you're doing full pallet picks and that pallet tag is available to scan, I highly recommend using that instead of just a product UPC or just scanning the bin, because that is going to reconfirm with the system what date that they've grabbed and make sure that that date is accurately represented on the invoice as well, or that batch is accurately represented on the invoice. So scan, scan, scan anytime you can. Do that barcode on the pallet tag instead of the product UPC, just so we get that much more information out of it.
You guys make some headway on using the field.
All right, so we've completed that pallet.
Say begin to continue.
And we can see that that is now confirmed. So I can continue with that picking and do that next pallet for us to get started with.
Next location, A16E, pick 1, pallet.
And so here's where we can actually see that next pallet assignment. So from the assign batch tool in palletization as a supervisor, ePick Plus is respecting those instructions that I gave to the system. So we pulled one of those pallets from backstock. That's the pallet that I already completed. And then we can see that this next pallet is directing me to that next date in that other bin to complete this pick. So we're really following the system's instructions according to what you want to happen on the supervisor side of things. So it's the same thing here. If that pallet tag is still available to me, I would highly recommend scanning that just so we can confirm back to the system that is the date that I'm grabbing. But you can see here on the screen as well, we're always going to have that code date instruction displayed for the team member so that any way they can check whether that actual tag is there or not, that's going to be a great way to just really confirm that you've got the right or intended dates going to the customer. So we'll just complete that pick again, not using printers here on our test system. So I'll skip over that.
Say begin to continue.
But now we can see that both of those pallets have been completed and they are ready to be loaded onto the truck. So with that, now what we've seen is receiving those dates into the system and creating those multiple different lines of dates from the start. And then just continuing to scan that pallet tag or communicate those dates to the system as often as you can throughout all of the rest of the processes. So we'll hop back to our presentation here now. So as a reminder, visually, this is what we're looking for to scan. Many of you are likely already printing pallet tags from receiving right now, whether you're using bin lots or not. So one question you might have would be, okay, I'm not using bin lots currently. How do I get started with that? Step number one is definitely going to be actually printing these pallet tags so that when you do turn on bin lots, we have something we can work with in the system. It's not impossible to get started without them, but it definitely makes it a lot easier. So that's number one. Make sure you're printing those pallet tags. Make sure they're getting applied to all of those pallets as they're received into your system. And then you've got something you can scan to get that information communicated to the system as inventory moves around. So whether you're using them right now or just joined this webinar to get a little bit more bin lot information, bin lots are a great way to level up your date and batch rotation visibility. And it's newer tools like that assign batch tool that can take it to that next level either way. So greatest benefit comes from tracking those bin lots from the very start at receiving when that inventory enters your dock for the first time, all the way to finish and getting that inventory out on those final deliveries. So scanning all throughout and enabling that assign batch tool to tell the system what kinds of dates you want to work with during deliveries, it's really going to close that loop. Do be ready to scan for every single action in the system, and then turn on optional bin lots in your picking areas to continue that communication whenever you can't scan. And of course, check out help resources to learn more. We've got a lot of information out there about bin lots. And let's move on to questions if anybody has anything for us.
I'm not seeing anything, but as we get ready to conclude here, I just want to thank Mariah again for taking time for presenting this today. And thank you guys for attending. If you have a moment when the webinar is over, we have a survey to fill out. We really want feedback. We really love your feedback. We'll also be emailing you a link in a follow-up email. So if you don't have time right now, afterwards, we totally understand. You can go ahead and fill that out later when it's convenient. You can find the recording for this or any of our other skills kickstarts or recordings in the recording archive page in BevEd. And for any additional questions, go ahead and take a look at the portal for new uh, help resources. And for our assistant, Bev, she's ready and eager to help.